Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. Our guest for today is Lon Strickler, who is well known in the paranormal encrypted community, and we're big fans and are really excited to talk to him. Now, Lon, I know you've been running the Phantoms and Monsters website for many years, and you have just a ton of information on there that's in the process of a major upgrade right now, and will hopefully be re-available soon. But in addition to that, you've written a lot of books, right?
Yeah, total I've written 9 books. There are 4 of them in print right now, and I'm actually working on a 10th one, so that should be out by the end of the year.
Oh, what's the next one going to be on?
About the Glimmerman phenomena.
Oh, okay.
I remember. It's new.
Yeah, I don't think we've covered that one yet. I'm definitely gonna have to check that book out.
Yeah, well, what it is, it's very similar. You know, if you're familiar with the Predator movies,
right,
where the Alien and Predator movies has that type of glassine-like cloaking ability, and there have been people for about a decade now who have been reporting seeing something very similar to that.
Yeah.
So me and 2 other gentlemen who have been collecting these reports over the years, had decided that we're going to do a book about it. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Great. Yeah, that is a phenomenon we've come across a few times in, reading and watching specials on Dogman and Bigfoot particularly. It seems like people want to attribute that ability to them, but I find it interesting, the idea that it might be a completely separate creature.
Well, it does seem to be more humanoid than anything else. And a lot of aspects of it are very similar to what was in the film. Now, of course, people see it and they associate with something they're familiar with, or pop culture, or through movies and film. And, there really wasn't a name for it. So we kind of gave it the Glimmerman name about a decade ago. And since that time, we have been receiving quite a few reports. I don't know if we really necessarily know what's going on, if it's possibly an interdimensional species of some type. It does seem to be corporeal, but it does also seem to be something that we're just not really familiar with much at all. So, so it's going to be one of those things where we put in the information that we've collected, from the witnesses, and put a few ideas in the book about what it may or may not be, and let people judge for themselves.
Cool.
Yeah, it's always pretty cool to name something new.
Yeah. You'll have your own cryptid.
I guess.
Well, one cryptid that I know you are really familiar with is the Mothman, and especially the sightings of the winged humanoids in the Great Lakes area. I know you contributed heavily to, I believe the film On the Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman, as well as the film Terror in the Skies.
Yeah.
And you've written a book on the subject, and I know you've collaborated with Tobias Wayland on some of the great stuff he's done on that topic. So all this was basically the backdrop to us doing our own investigation into the Lake Michigan Mothman over the last couple of years. And we travel a lot in the areas where these sightings took place. So we keep revisiting things from your website and from Tobias's book and from the other various accounts. We've even had a few fresh accounts of our own, but we'll let you tell kind of an overview, since I'm sure you've covered this many times before. How did this all get started, and what was it like for you being in the middle of all this?
Well, I've been involved with investigating Mothman for a long time. I mean, I had my own encounter back in 1988 here in Pennsylvania, something very similar to what people seeing out in Chicago. And for whatever reason, when the first reports came in 2011, which were reported on MUFON, there were 3 sightings in South Chicago. I was alerted about it and started looking into it. And of course, those 3 sightings were very unique. We didn't really know what people were seeing. And over the years, we would occasionally have somebody mention it to us. But in 2017, several reports started coming into MUFON again from sightings within the city of Chicago. And then they started spreading out as time went on. The first, back in 2017, I think we had about 50 sightings that we thought were legitimate. At that time, it was mostly myself and Manuel Navarrete looking into the phenomena. And Tobias contacted me. I don't know what month it was he contacted me, but it was starting to get close to summer. And since he was local, I brought him on to what we were investigating, and he and I have been looking deeper into it since then. But at this point right now, we have about 186 sightings or encounters that we believe are legitimate. Oh. And we are taking reports within a 250-mile radius of Chicago's downtown Chicago. So we're getting sightings as far north as near and above Milwaukee, down into central Illinois and into Indiana. And there have been a spat of sightings in southern Illinois as well, but we don't attribute that to the same creature that people are seeing in Chicago. And most of those sightings are a little bit different.
Are those more Thunderbird-like?
Well, I mean, it varies. I mean, a lot of times it's still the humanoid, the winged humanoid. Sometimes it's a winged humanoid as far as like a bird-winged humanoid or an owl-winged humanoid. Chicago sightings actually started out with a more butterfly or moth-like or insectoid type of wing. Mm-hmm. And as we continued to look into it in 2017, the sightings eventually turned to almost exclusively the bat-like gargoyle type wings. So I'd say now about 90% of the sightings are of that type of wing, the membrane wing.
But you said the ones in southern Illinois were different. I was just wondering if those were closer to like a Thunderbird or if they were just something else completely.
No, they weren't Thunderbird. They were definitely humanoid, but they were the wing structure was varied. I mean, it went from insectoid to the bird-like wing, and we had a few that were the gargoyle type wing. So, we've had reports all over the country, but the concentrations have been in and around the upper Midwest, of course, with in Chicago and the environs there. And in fact, we had about the same time the sightings were going on in Chicago, or started going on again in Chicago in 2017. We had a spat of sightings down in Florida. And there was a city of Zephyr Hills, Florida. We had three sightings in there, and which were very similar to what people have been seeing in Chicago. So, and we've had some sightings here in Pennsylvania as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just one place. It's actually a worldwide phenomenon. But the fact that we've had so many sightings in and around an urban area like Chicago is pretty unique.
Yeah. Now, one thing that struck me, and I think this came up in an interview you did with Tobias, but it came up again in his book, and it kind of caught me off guard, because oftentimes I find cryptid researchers kind of hold things close to the vest. You know, they don't like to throw like paranormal explanations out for possible cryptids. They like to say, well, it could have been this bird, it could have been that bird. Here's why they saw this, here's why they saw that. But one possible explanation you threw out there for the reason that the winged humanoid could be seen in a city like Chicago with millions of people and have only a handful of witnesses on a given night was the idea that maybe it was an interdimensional or paranormal creature that can only be seen by certain people.
That just seemed to be a possibility. I mean, I do believe that, and I personally believe that it's an interdimensional or even a supernatural being. Some of the aspects of it, the way it flies, the way it's able to be seen by just certain people. And I do believe that these things have the ability to show themselves to certain people within a crowd.
Right.
That has come up many times. But there's other aspects, of course, the red eyes and the forward projecting light of the red eyes. And we've had other eye colors as well, not as much, but a few other ones. And sometimes there was no eye color mentioned at all.
Yeah.
But I think we've got enough sampling at this point now to say that, or to safely say that it's not an indigenous. It's not something that is on our Earth plane all the time. It does seem to move in and out. People have described seeing it either manifest from thin air and vice versa, and to just disappear like it was going through an invisible doorway. We've had several of those. I think there's a lot of supernatural abilities that these creatures have, and that's just another part of the whole makeup of this phenomenon.
Yeah, there's so much variation in it. It's gonna be difficult to, if this will even happen one day, to pinpoint exactly what's going on with this cryptid. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Well, it's when you get a lot of different people seeing basically the same thing and telling you, for the most part, the same thing, but it's, it does frequent certain areas, but I think there are certain areas where it very well may be a portal or gateway to where they come in and out at. Now, I personally believe, and look, I mean, Tobias and I have a lot of different opinions about this whole phenomenon, but I do believe that O'Hare, especially at the Rest Haven Cemetery, I think there's actually a portal or two there where these things come in, because we had a lot of sightings in that direct area by TSA agents and cargo workers, drivers, as well as pilots and air traffic controllers. So I think that is I think that is a main area there. We've had sightings in the town of Bensonville. Yeah, to the southwest of Chicago. I mean, to the airport. In that area, we had about 9 to 10 sightings there, as well as Rosemont on the other side. So it does seem to be a hot area.
Well, you've got Elk Grove Village on the other side of it, and we've spent a lot of time there with Dogman sightings and Mothman sightings and just various cryptids and general weirdness that seem to pop up in that area as well.
Well, Chicago's kind of unique because it has a lot of greenway area and a lot of rivers and such, and there's a lot of space for a lot of things to show up. We've had a lot of humanoid sightings that may or may not be related to the Mothman or the winged humanoids. And look, the Mothman moniker, I didn't start that. That was the immediate did that. I was calling it the Chicago Phantom. And when this thing started getting out into the ether, a lot of especially the people on radio, were calling it the Chicago Mothman. So I just went ahead and eventually went along with it because I didn't want to start confusing people with that we were seeing two different type of phenomena.
Yeah. For me, at first, I was hearing a lot that some other names for it was like the Batman. I mean, obviously, that name's already taken. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different names. People like O'Hare, they call it the O'Hare Batman, and there's a lot of different monikers that have been put out about this thing, but I think it's safe just to keep it as Mothman now and just not kind of confuse too many people.
Right.
It's unfortunate though, because it's kind of like what happened with the term UFO. It's like whenever people said UFO, they started to assume you were some kind of kook, and that's why I think it was Travis from
Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, from Skinwalker Ranch, who came up with the term UAP. And then suddenly it became a generally accepted scientific term.
Yeah, well, to each his own. I still use UFO a lot. I mean, I've been doing this as long as I've been doing it. It's kind of hard to get out of the habit of it.
Yeah.
It's just the whole cryptid world is just so much, so much mystery to it. Are we ever going to be able to figure out what any of these creatures are? The cryptid canines, the Bigfoot, the winged humanoids, and such. I don't know. But people are continuing to report them. People who have no idea what a cryptid is, let alone, what they have seen. All they can do is come to you, report it, and ask questions, and we try to provide it as much as we possibly can to them.
One of the really cool things that I saw in your research with Manuel, I think that's how you pronounce his name, right?
Yeah, Manuel.
Yeah, he was able to reach out to some communities that ordinarily wouldn't report these things, being bilingual and having an in with like the people in Little Village and places like that. And he got some stories that I don't think most people would have gotten. And it just made me wonder how many of those stories are out there that are just, whether it's the Lucchesa or whatever folklore it's attributed to, that they're seeing the same things that we're talking about and just not sharing it due to an almost a racial mistrust.
Yeah, I think there may be thousands of them out there. I mean, we had a lot of sightings in Little Village areas that had a very, very large Hispanic population. And in fact, I have been going back and looking at the cases themselves, and I'd say at this point right now, about 70% of the sightings that we've had reported to us in and around Chicago have come from witnesses who have Hispanic heritage.
Wow.
And going back to the Chicago area, I was just curious, have you had any sightings? Has there been any sightings recently?
Like personal, or for him, you mean, or
just in general? Have there been any recent?
Well, there have been a few sightings recently, not necessarily in the city, but in the Chicagoland area. It's not been as heavy as it was when we started out in 2017, and we have had times when we had a whole bunch of them at one time, then they would kind of slack off. And we've had a lot of historical sightings as well, even before 2017. So people eventually come forward. They're not really, I don't know, they're very hesitant about coming forward about it. And but somebody in their family or a friend would mention it after they'd said to somebody, and say, "Oh yeah, that's been going on around here for a while," and they give them our name and such, and then they contact us. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. This cryptid investigators, for the most part, when they have a witness come forward, many times these witnesses will try to embellish on what they saw. I don't know the reason why, but a lot of times, I think they're trying to make it sound better than what it really was, to kind of convince the investigator that they actually saw what they saw. But I think the biggest thing I take from all these reports over the years has been that, for the most part, the witnesses are very forthcoming. Stick to their story, to the original story, to the original, even to the point where I have tried to get them to embellish on it just to see what they would say. And a lot of them just refuse to do it.
Now, I know, you do a lot of interviews with the witnesses.
Right.
It sounds like you and Tobias did a lot of cross interviewing, where one of you would talk to him and then the other would talk to him, and you'd compare stories afterwards.
Right.
But one thing I've always wondered is, have you ever gone out looking for a Mothman? And if so, how? Because I mean, if you're looking for Bigfoot or Dogman, there's tracks, there's habitat you can look for, prey animals, things like that. But a Mothman, it just seems like pure luck.
It is luck. I mean, like I told you earlier, I had my encounter back in 1988, And I had no idea what we were dealing with at that time. I wasn't even thinking about something like that. I had had a Bigfoot encounter before that, but as far as something winged that was humanoid, had red eyes, I mean, that, I wasn't expecting that. And I think, my encounter, in my experience, I don't know if it's a connection with me and this being and other things I have been involved with over the years. It does seem that I do have more encounters and more things happen to me as opposed to most people. I am intuitive. I am a clairsentient, and I've had these abilities all my life. And I don't know if that is a factor, but it does seem that I have been able to experience some pretty interesting things, and eventually leading into other cases that I'm involved with.
That's a very handy trait to have. I know it makes us jealous, and probably a lot of other people in the paranormal community too. We were talking to Chad Lewis a while back, and he said, I am the least psychic person you are ever going to meet. So no, I am not sensitive. I can't pick up on these things, and I'm pretty much lost when something like that is around. And I told them we're not too far behind them. We're pretty oblivious to paranormal.
Most investigators of the paranormal have never had an experience. I mean, I kind of joke with Stan Gordon about that. He's never had an encounter at anything, but he's been reporting on the phenomena in Pennsylvania all these years. There's a lot of people who haven't had encounters that are very serious about all of these phenomena. Mm-hmm. But I guess I've just been lucky.
Yeah, and it sounds like all of your encounters have been either positive or neutral. It doesn't sound like you've had anything like terrifying happen or threatening, right?
Well, I mean, it can get a little hairy when you're doing some of the actual spiritual malevolent hauntings or even infestation accounts and reports. I have done many of those, and that's what actually I use the remote viewing for the most part. Though I have changed the protocol to where I can use it in encrypted investigations as well. But I've written. I'm kind of what they call the eclectic paranormalist, because I just don't pick one subject. Mm-hmm. I take everything that comes my way. If I feel it's interesting and something that has some merit to it, I will look into it, and that's why Phantoms and Monsters was started, because I was getting all these reports over the time, and as time has gone on, I've been lucky enough to have people trust me to report their experience, and when they come to me, I believe wholeheartedly that I become part of that incident, and it's my responsibility to report it and to help them as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, we kind of follow that same logic with our podcast here.
Yeah, our only limitation is that it has to be within like an 8-hour drive of Illinois.
Yeah.
You mentioned the remote viewing, and that's something that has always fascinated me. I had a couple experiences as a child that at the time I had attributed to astral projection. But the more I learn about remote viewing, the more I think they may have actually been instances of remote viewing, because I wasn't actually affecting the environment around me. I was just looking at it in apparently real time. And I know that's a tremendous tool. The government used it during the Cold War era to get intelligence on foreign nations, and
they still use it.
Yeah, I would imagine they do. And certainly people have used it at places like Skinwalker Ranch, and Robert Bigelow is just a huge proponent of remote viewing. Mm-hmm. And one thing that struck me in your stories about your remote viewing, first of all, do you always use a handler or another person assisting you?
In a haunting case or a spirit or entity case, yeah, I would try to do that. You use a coordinate remote viewing or scientific remote viewing, where we have a monitor and it's basically just me and that person doing the actual procedure or the process. But as time has gone on, I've been able to use other people and kind of adjust the protocol to where I can either just do it myself or be involved with others. I mean, I don't do as much as I used to.
Mhm.
I work with a team out of Australia, or a woman out of Australia who I worked with and actually trained with
Mhm.
when back, well, it's been about 15 years now. You know, she's very psychic. She's got some very impressive abilities.
Hmm.
But I use her a lot of times in her team. She's got viewers from all over the world as part of her team, and they will normally go in, do a coordinate remote view. She does a little bit differently because she's kind of like a psychic artist, and she does put that as part of her remote viewing. You know, actual remote viewing isn't really a psychic endeavor or an intuitive endeavor. It's basically using your subconscious mind to gather clues, and you got to go through the protocol, basically, to the phases to get to the actual meat and potatoes of the actual phenomena, and it takes time. But invariably, and especially for people who do have abilities, as you get into the later phases, that intuitiveness and psychic ability does always sneak in, and as you get towards the end of a case, you're coming together with the other viewers, and you're putting your notes together and going through everything. That psychic ability always pops in, and so, you know, is it actual true remote viewing? Yeah, I guess it is. And you know, when we started out, it really was, but it does make things clear to when you do get to that point, and your deductions become much clearer as well. And when you do see signs, or you're imagining or sensing certain phenomena, the remote viewing subconscious clues do become part of it, and you can kind of put them together and formulate what you think is actually going on.
Yeah, I think the part that surprised me about all that is when you explained that your monitor or handler is not in the room with you, that they're actually a continent or two away, or several continents away.
She was in United Kingdom, and I was here in the United States, and I actually trained over Skype with her for about 6 months, and then we started doing cases together. I would be on my laptop watching through camera as her and her team were getting clues, and then I was picking up on things as well. And we do separate remote views away from the area of the investigation. But many times I was with them through Skype to see what was really going on. And we picked up a lot of EVPs in the meantimes, and seen a lot of different phenomena manifest and actually vanish and such. So yeah, it gets a little spooky sometimes, I guess you want to say that, but you know, it does make it interesting, and many times we've been able to help a lot of clients and to move whatever is bothering them on. And of course, when you're dealing with a spirit or an energy, it's always free will. You can't force anything to move on.
Right.
And it's basically, you got to convince it somehow. You got to connect with it, either psychically. And we've been lucky enough to be able to do that.
Have you ever run into something that caused you physical or mental harm while you were remote viewing? I've heard some horror stories about that.
I've had psychic attacks. In remote viewing, you are leaving yourself open. You know, I got better and better at protecting myself, but that's the good thing about having a monitor, because they can sense what's going on and pull you out. There were two situations where I was literally thousands of miles away from her, from the monitor and from the location to where we were doing the RV, and I would be psychically attacked, physically attacked. I had a laceration occur on my chest, about a 12-inch laceration down the middle of my chest during an RV, and also suffered bruised and cracked ribs during one as well.
Oof. I'd heard stories about like the government having like counter viewers set up at certain classified locations, so that if somebody tried to do remote viewing, they would actually be there to attack you or chase you out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you've heard a lot of stories. I've heard a lot of stories. I've talked to people who actually did work for MK Ultra and were involved with, especially Fort Meade, and doing a lot of that. And yeah, and I didn't live too far from Fort Meade, so I had some access to some people that were actually still living in the area over those years. But yeah, I've heard a lot of different things. I don't know how much of it you can really believe, but some of them are pretty hair raising.